Hello and welcome, and thank you very much for joining me on this live broadcast. Yes. Thank you very much. I thought tonight we'd talk a little bit about brushes. What a minefield. There are so many brushes out there. And I made a little video a few years ago going through all the different types of brushes, and I thought it would be a good idea if we watched that this evening, and I joined you on that as well, because it's just an absolute minefield when you go to the shops and you see all these different brushes. You've got short flats and detail brushes, script liners, rake brushes, mop brushes, blenders, fan brushes, and as a beginner, it's quite mind-boggling, as I mentioned in a video that I'm going to be showing you shortly. And the other thing is I wanted to explain is that all the effects that you can get with these brushes. So they you need to get to know your brush. That's the most important thing. You need to get to know your brush, and that's for sure. That is for sure. Okay, let's just get my camera, because I've knocked my camera a little bit there. So yeah, this video was done, as I said, a good few years ago. I was quite fat then. And I don't know what was what the problems with brushes, because are you like me? Do you go and buy all these brushes? Now you've got loads of brushes, and if you're like me, you only use about 6, possibly 10 brushes. Couple of a couple of detail brushes, a couple of short flats, different sizes. Maybe a fan brush, maybe a blender, a script liner, and just the odd couple of small little detail brushes. Are you like me? Hmm. So why is it then that every time we go to an art store, we buy brushes, or at least 70% of the time, we'll always walk out with a brush. Now, my nemesis is palette knives. I can't resist. I can't resist a good palette knife. So that's my nemesis is where's the palette knives? So without further ado, I think we'll just walk through this YouTube video that I made, as I said, a couple of years ago, and I'll join you on it as well. I'm going to be in the top right hand corner there, and yeah, I'll watch it with you. So without further ado, let's get started. This, as a beginner, it is frustrating because what brushes do you need? There's squares, rounds, ovals, script liners, detail brushes. There's short flats. There's sword brushes. There's deerfoot brushes. There's man-made, synthetic, a mixture of both. There's bristle brushes. Whoa, the head explodes. It really does. But what I'm trying to do here today is not just show you how to take care of your brushes, but I also want to show and explain very quickly in an easy way, if I can. I don't think there's an easy way, but we'll get there in 1 second. We certainly will. And I just want to take you through the brushes and how to look after them. And I think that's about all I can do in this particular lesson. And then we're going to look at paints. That's another thing that we need to be careful of, is paints, because that is just a minefield. Anyway, let's get down to the table of explanation. So as we said, let's have a look at the table of explanation now. So yeah, I did mention paints. That's another thing that I'm going to be touching on in these chats. So I want to thank everybody for coming in and commenting so far. That is nice. And as the video plays, what I'll be doing is I'll be answering some questions. So please feel free to put the questions in there, or anything you want answers to within the art world, please. And yeah, I'll answer them for you. So without further ado, let's get back on to the table of explanation. I don't know where that one came from. As you can see, I've got an array of brushes in front of me. Just ignore all this stuff for one moment. So what do I mean? Well, that is a short flat. There you go. That's a short flat. This is a small one. Yes, a little itty ditty one, but you can get them as big as that and even bigger. Yes, some of the bigger brushes are really frightening, but I try to keep them under lock and key, and I don't let them out very often. So yeah, short flats. They are squares or short flats. There we go. So if you hear me saying on the lesson about squares or short flats, those are the ones I'm talking about. Okay, let's put them there. We've got detail brushes again. These come in various sizes. This happens to be a number 12. I got itty ditty ones here, and there you go. I didn't get one out, so I didn't prepare very well. But they're itty ditty ones. Look, they're very, very small, and they go really fine to 0, 0 or 0, 1, 0, as fine as you want them. Really, I can get them down to 1 hair. So and these can go big as well, so I keep them in the cage also, and they can get really big and chunky. But it all depends what type of painting you actually want to do, and they normally are a standard size, but they come to a nice sharp point, so when they wet you can actually get some lovely detail painting, some detail effects. Detail effects, I don't know. Yes, we can. Okay, so they're called detail brushes. Again, that's another short flat, but that is in a different type of bristle, which we will talk about in 1 second. What have we got? We got rounds. Now, these are what they call a round brush. Why? Because you can see they actually look round. So it's like a big detail brush with the end chopped off. So you haven't got a point on that one. So it's flat. So basically, it's a big detail brush like that, but with no point on it. So it's called a round. And that happens to be a bristle brush. Again, we'll talk about that in 1 second. So bristle brushes, yeah, you can use any type of brush with acrylics, but you need to remember a few things. They do say that the best brushes are acrylic brushes, so they're synthetic or a mixture of natural and synthetic hair. But I've never found any problems with using bristle brushes. The only thing is that a lot of the hairs can come out and stick onto your painting, and that can be a bit disconcerting for some people. But what you need to do is wash them really well, look after them, allow them to shed, because like me, they lose hair. I've had a few of my hairs stick onto the canvas. And once that happens, as long as you look after them and maintain them properly, bristle brushes are fantastic, especially if you're doing trees and things like that. But yeah, fantastic. Good for the if you're trying to emulate a Bob Ross painting in acrylics, which I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks as well. So let's go back to me in the studio and the table of explanation. Then we got ovals. Ovals are basically a detail brush has been squished flat like that. So you imagine that being squeezed, and that's the type of shape you'd get. So if we have a look at this bristle now, if I squeeze it in my hand, it'll go like that. See? So that's all it is. It's a squished detail brush, and they come in different sizes as well. And a square is basically a detail brush that's been squished with the edge chopped off. That's all it is. Yes, simple, isn't it? So that's what they call a filbert. I don't know why they call them a filbert, but that just happens to be their name. I don't particularly mind what they call them. They could be called Charlie, but it just happen to be called Phil. So there we are. There's a little filbert brush, and again, they all come in different sizes as well. They're good for rocks and things like that. And then we got a fan brush. Yes, there you are. So that's basically a short flat. It's been squished again. So if you squish a short flat really, really well, it'll fan out like that. See? Can you see? Can you see? There you are. So if you hit that ferrule, that's the metal part, with a hammer, you can actually splay that into a fan brush. There you go, like that. And I've been known to do that. Yes. So it's amazing, isn't it, when you think about how brushes are made. You've got a handle, a metal part which is a ferrule, and you've got some hairs, and it depends how you shape these hairs and how you hit that metal ferrule to get the bristles to splay, to go to a point, to be a square and chopped. So if you have a close look at your brushes, they're all basically the same. It's just the way the hair's been cut or squished and splayed. It's quite interesting if you really look into it. Or was that just me? So you can play around with these brushes. So if you've got some really cheap brushes and you want to make a square into a fan brush, then you can do that. Yeah, I may show you how to do that one day. And there we are. So fan brushes, they're good for blending. They're good for blending, and they're good for trees, and they're good for grasses. They're good for foliage. They got a vast amount of uses, but you can paint clouds with them. So they are a really got a vast amount of use. Okay, now let's go. Oh, I've got a rake brush there. Let's talk about the speciality brushes. This is a rake brush. Now I don't know if you could see, the camera's focused on that a percentage of those hairs are shorter than the others. And if you've seen me doing the wolf painting in the Halloween, or the deer painting, or any fur painting I do, I tend to use one of these for the fur, because it makes little lines, looks like fur. And I don't know, there must be about 30 individual hairs sticking out of that brush there, so I can have 30 individual little lines instead of playing around with a small detail brush. So that's what that is. It's a rake brush, good for grasses as well. The other tip I got for you, I don't know how well this will work, but you could put 2 to 3 brushes together with an elastic band, and if they got a fair size hair on them, not so much a script liner, but one of these long fine detail brushes, and then you can use that, and you could do like 3 or 4 hairs at a time. So when you're doing fur and you want to go into the main detail of the fur, individual hairs, don't try and just play around with one brush. Try and think of things you can do to make the job much easier for yourself. And that's what I tend to do, is like rake brushes, they're not expensive, but I mean, if you can come up with a way of utilizing what you've got instead of spending money, then I've done my job. And I'm always looking for ways to save money. And the other speciality brush is, I'm just wetting this, is called a sword brush. Well, that's what I know it as, a sword brush. And it comes to a nice sharp point like that. And that's good, again, for foliage, for grasses, for tree stumps, or tree trunks, I should say. And you can play around with that. That's a really nice soft brush, and it keeps its shape. You can mold it into a certain pattern if you wanted to. There we are, we reverse it, so I can get a nice sharp point right on the end. And there you are. If you can see that, I'll put it just off my face. If you can see that, it comes to a nice sharp point, so you can mold these to different shapes. And the other good thing a sword brush is for is doing leaves and stuff. If you're into floral painting, really good for the leaves and stuff, and you can get nice broad patterns down to a fine sharp tip, or you can just do 2 strokes and get this lovely leaf. Yes, sword brush. You need to get one of them. They're really good, especially if you're into floral painting and pet portraits. I use it a lot in pet portraits. The one I didn't discuss really was a script liner brush, and that's really a long pointed brush, and there's one there. I'll put that there because that could be quite useful in a second. And that is basically a long pointed brush. It's a detail brush. There it is, my favourite brush of all time. I've still got that here somewhere. I lost it the other day, and I'm not sure if it's rolled into my cabinet or not. I'm going to have to find him, because I've had him for years. And when you get this brush and it's your favourite, It doesn't matter how many brushes you've got. If you look at the side of my cabinet there, you'll see there's brushes and brushes and brushes. Got a lot more now. It's been a few years since I made this video. And you've always got this brush on you. It's like your favourite t-shirt. You think, ooh, I got all these clothes, but I'm going to wear that. Why? Because I only wore it the other day. It's been washed, it's been ironed, but I love it. And that's what it is with a brush. And that's not a bad thing, because a brush is an extension of your hand and your mind. Don't ever forget that. Always look after your brushes. They look after you. This tall. It's been stretched. No, it's a very long bristled brush, and it comes to a very sharp point, and you'll see me using that on branches and grasses and things like that. So if I say a script liner or help! Somebody help me, I've forgotten it. A script liner, there we are. We call it a script line, doesn't matter, I've forgotten. But there you go. So I haven't got any better over the years, have I? I've lost a bit of weight, but I'm still a nutty old Welshman waffling along in Wales in his garden shed, which I call a studio. So that's it, really. You don't need to worry too much about brushes. You just need a selection of brushes. So I would suggest you get, say, a couple of squares, which are those. Okay, or short flats. You want a selection of detail brushes from different sizes, from the very small to whatever size you're comfortable with. Some filbert brushes, which are those ones. You can get them in various sizes. You might want to get a fan brush, or make your own fan brush, and you might want to get a blending brush. This is a very, very soft brush this is called a deerfoot. It's a very, very soft brush, and that can be used for blending in clouds. It can be used for putting in mist. It can be used for a vast amount of different things, fluffing up clouds and just basically blending. That's what I use those for. So I've just stopped the video. Can you see my little mouse cursor? There it is. Whee! So that one there is a mop brush, a blender, I call it. There's two different types of blenders, that one and that one there. So that comes in various sizes. So this is a very soft brush, which what that does is, it's like the blending brush that Bob Ross uses in oil paints, you know, when he just feathers over the oil paint, just to take the brush strokes out. It's just a very fine blending brush, where the other one is more for blending, but it gives you a coarser type of blend. So it's because it's a thicker, more thicker piled brush. And one's deer hair, the other one is horsehair. So you can imagine deer hair is slightly softer than the horsehair. Or is it the way round? I'm not too sure. But I do know the darker one of the two, which is this one there, is a slightly coarser, harder bristle than that one. And these are natural hair brushes. So you need to look after them. You really do. Okay. I think I've waffled enough. So let's look at the different types of brushes. What makes up the brush? Let's have a look at what makes up the brush. Right. Firstly, we got a handle. That's quite easy to understand because we hold it. Now it depends on the brush pattern where you actually hold your brush. You can hold your brush down there, or you can hold your brush up there. You can hold your brush in the middle. Some people tend to use it like a pen, but you can use the brush in many different ways. You can hold it like that. You can hold it. Whoops! You can hold it like that, or you can even drop it. So all that is going to give you different effects. So what I suggest you do is practice with that, and I will make a video on showing you what type of patterns you can get with these brushes. But we move then down into the metal part, Obviously on these they're black, and on these they're silver, and that is called a ferrule. Now in there, that is where the metal part holds the bristles, which is connected to the handle, obviously, and they glued in place. Now these bristles are in there, and they've been stuck together with glue and then pressed there very gently just to hold the bristles in place. Now that is important. The reason I'm mentioning that is because when we come to cleaning our brushes, you will understand what I mean. So that is called a ferrule. Handle, ferrule, bristles. That's it. That's all a brush is. Handle, ferrule and bristles. And very important that you remember position of your hand on the handle. Gives you different patterns. You've got to look after the ferrule. There's a reason I'll come on to in 1 second, and we've got to maintain our bristles, because if we don't look after our bristles, we're not going to have very nice brushes, and we're going to start kicking ourselves because some of these are very expensive. So what I'm going to say now is that don't go spending a fortune on brushes. That particular brush that I got on my hand there was only 50 pence. So I don't know what that is, about 80 cents, a dollar. That's not a lot. Some other brushes I got there are more like £4 or £5. I got some brushes going to 20 or £30. So it's important that we maintain our brushes, because acrylic is a killer. Not only is it harsh on the bristles, believe it or not, but it dries super fast. Yes, we got a super fast drying acrylic paint, and it can get stuck in that metal part, which is called a ferrule, and slowly build up like plaque on your teeth. And all of a sudden, you've got a brush that is, the only use you can use it for is to knock nails in a piece of wood. But there are ways to recover brushes. Maybe that's another video, along with the video that I'm going to be doing next week about all these different effects you can get with brushes. So I'm going to go back, answer some questions, and let myself talk on the video. Okay, now let's have a look. These are natural bristle brushes. Normally like a hog hair or something like that. We don't want to worry about the actual where they come from. It could be a badger hair, it could be deer hair, it could be like I said, it could be a bristle brush, a hog brush, and a lot of these different natural types of hair or bristle take a little bit of care, and you've got to look after the natural ones, because they get damaged quite easily. Yes, and they can absorb a lot of moisture, and if you leave a lot of these in water for any length of time, they will get a bit funky and go all they'll just splay out of all proportion. And not a bad thing in some cases. Sometimes I leave natural bristle brushes soak specifically to get them to just spray out like this, because if I can get them to do that, I can use them for trees and things. Now, so you need to prepare. You need to basically look after them in a different way, and we'll be covering that in 1 second. So you've got this is like a man-made bristle. Basically, it's like a I don't know what it is, but I think it's like a Hessian type of bristle. It's a natural fibre, actually. It's a fibre brush. That's the word I was looking for. This is more of a fibre than the bristle. So you can get brushes that's got natural fibres, basically. There we are. They're natural fibre brushes. Very complicated. To try and keep it simple is hard sometimes. Yes. Anyway, so you've got that type. The other thing you've got is, this is like I said, this is going on to this is a very, very soft, this is pony hair. This comes off the mane of a horse, this particular one. It's really nice and soft. Again, that's a natural hairbrush. This is a deer hair. This comes off a deer, I think, or a stag, but it could be a deer because it was expensive. So it's a deer brush. So yeah, that's a very nice soft brush. So they need special care. So you've got them. Now you can actually buy brushes which is a blend between a man-made fibre, like a synthetic brush, synthetic fibres. These white ones are talon brushes. They're like a nylon brush, a nylon base. So monofilament type of thing. Yeah, they're nylon. You can get them. You can get a mixture of this with the natural. So that's a different type of brush. I thought I was trying to keep this simple. I'm confusing myself. Go! I'm quite surprised I know so much about brushes. When I look back at the old videos, I tell you, it makes me smile sometimes. And wow, and my studio has changed so much as well. But yeah, I hope you're finding this really interesting, because I love going back over this stuff, because it's a shame that, well, it's not a shame, but I don't want to remake videos and talk about subjects over and over and over, but sometimes videos get lost in the depths of YouTube, and they get put in the background, they don't get shown, they don't get premiered or whatever. And it's important sometimes that I bring these back and show the new people, because I only had about 10,000 subscribers when I made this video. So it's very important to show and show my experience with brushes and help people. Yeah, and you can, on the side, you can see my collection of palette knives. But you want to see my collection now? It's vast. The saw brush is a natural hair brush. I'm not too sure what hair that is. But then you've got the man-made synthetic ones again, like that one there. And they are normally used for acrylics. You'll see there's brushes designed for watercolours, like sables. They're a very soft brush. Not very good for acrylics in many ways, because they get they're a bit soft. You need something with that's a little bit more robust. Bristle brushes tend to be used a lot in oil paints, because they take a bashing, because acrylic and oil paint is quite heavy, hard on the brush, hard on the canvas. So you need something really stiff for that, unless you go into glazings and stuff. But that's what they normally use for. But you can use any brush with acrylics, because it's a water-based paint. You can use any brush, but be careful. Try to avoid the watercolor brushes if you can, unless you're going to use acrylics as a watercolor. Try to avoid them, because they tend to be a little bit soft. So you need something like a man-made fibre, or a natural hair brush, or even a bristle brush. But I would tend to err on the side of caution and say, go for the man-made. If it says good for acrylics and oils, that's the type of brush you want. So without confusing the issue, that's all I need to say about brushes. Really, there's not much more I can say. So, I cut that short before the end of the video. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. It's been fun, and I've enjoyed your company, not only watching the video with yourself, but all the questions that I've had coming in. So keep the questions coming. You can comment on the video after it's premiered or whatever, and I'll try to get back to as many questions as I can. At this present moment in time, I've got over 180,000 subscribers, so I get loads of emails, loads of comments, to such a point that I'm finding it very difficult to actually keep up with these comments. So, but I'll do my best, and I skip through them quite often. And what I do then is I'll make a little note on videos like this. I'll talk and answer questions as well. But I've got memberships coming up shortly. Yes. So that's going to be out towards the end of the month. Now there's going to be 3 tiers. Tier 1 is going to be regular live broadcasts purely for members, not publicly transmitted. So that's just going to be purely for members. All the members will be notified and about the subjects that we're going to be talking, even the projects that we might be painting. There's going to be a school type project basis as well. So I'm going to be doing big paintings, full on, paint with me. I'll take you from the whole process, and that could be going on weekly for about 12 weeks, in fact. Some of the projects I've got in mind for that. So they're going to be released on a regular basis. I've got to start doing them ready. And the other one then, I think, is going to be just a video specifically for members. So that could be your choice. You could say, Clive, I want to see a mountain or a fish or whatever. You understand. But I'm going to be continuing doing my uploads every Monday and little chats like this, revisiting some old videos, bringing them back up to date, because I've got a lot of stuff there, a lot of information that you won't see. The other thing I want to ask is check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. YouTube tends to, over a period of time, just delete subscribers because they do. Check your notifications, because I've had a few people saying, well, are you still uploading videos? Yeah, every Monday, 7:30. Without fail. So videos like this will just be periodic or whenever I want to put them out. But every Monday, 7:30, there's always a video. So if you're not getting notified, think, check your notifications, check you're subscribed, check your phone is receiving notifications, check you've checked the notification box in the channel on YouTube, and you should be fine. So without further ado, I want to say thank you for joining me here this evening. And yeah, have a nice time. I hope that's been of use. Thanks to everybody that's joined me this evening. And I'm sure I will see you next week. So stay safe, stay well. See you then. Bye.
It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe.